Sometimes cars find you rather than you finding them. Project cars come around always at the wrong time. And this episode is testament to that. Because if you've ever seen one of our most successful videos on the Late Break Show, was when I went to Trent's Vehicle Salvage Dismantlers, and up on a huge stack of vehicles, I saw that. A smart Roadster Brabus. And I was like, what is that doing in the yard? And I felt like I had to save it. The point of going to Trent's and showing how a modern cutting-edge salvage yard operates is because they're one of those people who try and dismantle cars as effectively as possible and reuse OEM bits to keep other cars alive. I saw this and I just couldn't stop thinking about it, because I remember when these were new and when they were launched, and seeing that it was a Brabus really grabbed me, and I thought, what's it doing there? It turns out it had been written off because of water ingress through the sunroof, damaging some of the control systems inside the car. Anyway, one thing led to another, and I managed to get the car off them. And the point of this video is I'm going to be getting this car back on the road, because I cannot see this abandoned Brabus being put on death row. That is the point of this video, and I've brought it here to S2 Smarts in Leighton Buzzard, because we're going to kick off by knowing exactly what's wrong with it and knowing how far we're going to go before we get it MOT'd and usable on the road. I'm Jonny Smith, this is the Late Break Show, and this episode is proudly supported by Autodoc. This is Rob, who runs S2 Smarts, and I was recommended you, Rob, because I was on the Evolution forum for smart cars, which seems to be an amazing forum.
It is.
And everyone I spoke to said, take the car to Rob. Take the car to Rob to diagnose it. And I thought, I don't know much about these, apart from the fact that I know they're bona fide classics now. I know that Gordon Murray daily drove his for 16 years. His was a Roadster non-Brabus, and he loves his. And I thought, the bones of this seem to be good. When it got delivered to me, they didn't think it was a runner, and yet we put a jump pack on it and it started and drove off the trailer, albeit with a flat tyre. And I was like, it doesn't sound too bad, and it all seems to weirdly operate. So maybe it's not that bad. And then fast forward to loading it up on the trailer, bringing it to you, I thought, right, you've had it for a while. Hopefully you can have gone through it and you can tell me what's wrong with it. So that's what I'm here to do in this first episode. It's to say, how bad is it? Is it feasible to put it back on the road? And hopefully it's just kind of got the basis of a car that can live again.
Yeah.
Over to you.
Yeah, always feasible to put it back on the road, no problems at all. It's what I did expect for a car of this age with regards to the things that are wrong with it that need replacing.
Yeah.
But it's not bad.
Yeah.
You know? It's certainly worth putting back on the road without question.
I'm really glad about that. I actually drove this model in period when it was new, as well as the very early Smart 4.2s. And your background has been Smart 4.2s for how long? For long.
24 years.
Has it?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So you've raced them, repaired them. Your whole business revolves around keeping these things alive. The sort of Mercedes era of smarts.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Without question.
Wow.
Yeah.
Give me your honest opinion on the vinyl wrap.
It is aging, isn't it?
It's tired.
Yeah.
But actually,
I mean, it looks good.
it looks great.
Yeah.
I think it looks great. And I know it's got to come off because it's a bit tired. I actually looked up the MOT history of this car once it had arrived with me. And if you watch the video, which was a sum up of all my project cars going on at the moment, which is right at the beginning of this year, 2024, I mentioned how this car came to be. But in the previous MOT advisories, that tyre it's had a slow puncture numerous times.
Yeah.
And I remember you and everyone else has said to me, Brabus wheels, they're amazing to look at. They're almost made out of chocolate. What was really cool about seeing it at Trent's yard, it was probably, 40 feet in the air on one of those racks. And it had seagulls living on it because it's near the sea in Dorset. And there was a bird's nest on that inner wing. I definitely found that. You might have found that while you were inspecting it.
Well, the remnants of,
You found the remnants of a nest?
Yes.
Yeah. Nice. So before we delve into this, just a quick reminder to people, two types of smarts traditionally, the Mercedes-owned smarts. You had the original 4.2.
450 model.
I love those. A left-hand drive in the UK when they first came over,
Yes.
weren't they? And then you had this, which is the 4.5.2.
Yep.
And this was a Roadster or a Roadster Coupe. Is that right?
Yes.
The notchback or the fastback?
Yeah.
Of which this is the fastback.
Yeah, and this is the Brabus version.
And this is the Brabus version. So this was the most expensive.
Yes.
And I remember in period, the early 2000s when they launched, they were a lot. They were great cars. When we reviewed them, we were like, "This is a fantastic car," but they're not cheap.
No.
And I think that's probably one of the things that they suffered from a little bit was.
And the fact that it's had a small capacity engine, but it was one of those, you get someone in it to drive it,
Yeah.
and once they've driven it, then
get
they
it.
understand
Yeah.
the car
Yeah.
and the concepts and how good it actually is from a handling point of view.
Yeah. That's brilliant. Power-wise, Brabus compared to non-Brabus.
Right, a non-Brabus basically is 81 brake horsepower.
Okay.
And these are 101 brake horsepower from the factory.
101.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the difference is, because when I started trying to look at on forums and things, what is the main difference between, like, is there a crankcase difference? Is there a head difference? Is the head and the crankcase are the same?
Right, all the Roadster engines are effectively the same, including the Brabus. The Brabus has got sodium-filled valves in the head, just to help with regards to cooling. It's got a charge cooler, and that's the radiator for the charge cooler, so it can lower the air intake temperatures down better to give you a better performance. The turbo is the same, barring the actuator is a stronger actuator to enable it to boost and keep the boost at throughout the rev range. And that's basically it. And of course, a map from Brabus designed for this particular car.
So it behaved a little differently.
Yes.
Brabus suspension?
It has got Brabus suspension. So the standard Roadster has got normal suspension. It's still good suspension, but the Brabus has got it's 20 mil lower. Also with the wheels to accommodate those, make it look better in respect of its stance as well.
Yeah. Rob is mad / interesting enough to have raced at a high level in a smart 4.2.
Yeah, and currently in a 4.4.
And currently in a 4.4. So he's no stranger to putting big power into these things. I need to say a massive thank you to Trents for actually making sure this car didn't go on to death row. They were quite surprised I was so interested in it, but kind of pleased as well. And I'm glad that I managed to snaffle it away from them. Because I do think it deserves to go back onto the road. And is that that was kind of why I needed to bring it to you. A, to have a lot of the work done, but B, make an adult decision on, is this economically viable to go back on the road?
It's definitely economically
viable. It is?
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah, it's a Brabus, it's a coupe.
Yeah.
It's a sought after car to a certain extent. But it's also a damn good looking car.
It is a damn good looking car.
Yeah.
You've had the car for about a week or so.
Yep.
And I purposely wanted you to kind of go through it and give me a list of what needs to be replaced in order for it to run and drive and be MOT'd again.
Yep.
What does that list comprise of?
Suspension all round. Might as well just put all new suspension on.
Yeah.
Brakes, critical. We're looking at discs, pads, shoes, slave cylinders, the brake pipes and lines themselves to make it safe.
Yeah.
Some of the suspension items, such as ball joints and things like that, they're worn or they've got play in them.
Yeah.
So renew all those. So it's back to a nice, stiff, stoppable car.
Yeah. Right. So engine-wise, it runs. I know that these engines used to grenade quite easily, not just Brabus ones, but normal ones. Is that lack of maintenance more than anything?
It's more lack of maintenance. It's also what's used in the maintenance of the car.
Right.
these are quite critical with regards to the oils that are used, the filters that are used. They have issues with regards to cam chains in the sense of they are basically tensioned through oil pressure, and that oil pressure is critical down to oil filters and the oil that's used as well. That's basically it.
Well, this car, which I should have said at the beginning of the video, people who follow me on social media and stuff will probably remember that this has done 190,000 miles.
Yeah.
And I can reveal that those miles have all been done by one woman. This is a one lady owner car prior to it getting written off, which amazed me. Through the power of the internet, the owner actually contacted me and said, that's my old car. And I explained to her that I was trying to put it back on the road, and she was really, really pleased. She was so upset. It turns out someone had tried to break into it, hence the damage on the roof, hence then a rainstorm, which then damaged the unit. The SAMS unit, is it
SAM
called?
unit is...
The SAM unit.
Yeah.
This is the unit that sits under the
driver's
steering column footwell.
Yeah.
And this is an open version of it. And what you were saying to me is really interesting, because what you said to me before is it's not just rainwater coming in the car and dripping on it.
No.
It's actually just water that's already got in somewhere.
That creates condensation within the car.
And it basically sits and sweats.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're going to check ours over
Yes.
and then see whether or not it's repairable or if it needs to be refurbed or replaced with another one.
Yeah.
And then that needs to be coded to the car, presumably, does it?
Right. If we need to basically replace it with another one, we'll clone it.
Yeah.
So it will be just literally a plug and play straight back into that car again.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
Yep.
Okay. So that is one of the big Achilles heels of the Roadster.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But not... There's a lot of other cars have similar issues, but yes, the Roadster is renowned for it, yes. Yeah.
So for a future episode, definitely going to ascertain that that's reliable and happy. And then we've obviously got to stop water from getting in, which is actually quite a hard thing to do on a Roadster from what I've gathered.
Yeah.
So that is either repairing that existing electric sunroof, convertible roof, or putting a hard top, T-top on it, if I can find one second hand.
Yeah.
If this looks brutal, it's because it is, and it's because buying the car from a salvage meant that I didn't get paperwork as in service history with the car. I just got the key to the Smart, and we didn't get the locking wheel nuts. So we've got to remove the locking wheel nuts to get the wheels off, which is what Rob's doing.
Or attempting to.
Once we've got them off, we can start the process and kick off the service and replacing the alternator and a couple of other engine bits. While the guys are cracking on with the car, the first job they're going to do is replace the alternator. And of course, what Rob did is a few days ago emailed me a hit list of the things he knew were going to need replacing. Knowing that the alternator is seized, which is a well-known problem on Smart 4.2s and Roadsters, I went on the Autodoc website and I actually downloaded the app as well. And you can go through these really easy to understand menus and you can find the parts you want. And better still than that, because there's like millions of different parts, you can get different grades of parts as well. So I've ordered an alternator. I've also ordered the Fabi Bilstein front ball joints because he wanted those specific ones with the assembly with all the bolts and everything. Went through, ordered all of those, decided how quickly I wanted it to be delivered, and I've had it delivered to me here. Now, if you want, you can get 5% discount from Autodoc using the code LATE5 in the basket. What's great about all of this is you can decide to keep your car on the road like I do, because I want that 190,000 mile Brabus to get back on the road as quickly as possible. I want to be able to do over 200,000 miles in it. The greenest thing you can do is to keep your car healthy and keep your car for longer. The radiator is well tucked inside this kind of the chassis. You can see the chassis goes across there. They're taking the arch liners out. And although there's lots of surface rust on the rear subframe and a lot of the other parts of this, I'm going to probably get that either blast cleaned, like dry ice blasted, or paint some potion on it that neutralises it, and then we can anti-corrosion it, because I do want to make sure it stays that way. Now, it is really dirty in my Brabus. It's got people's hair, I think dog hair, so it's dirty. But crucially, it's all there and it's not too worn. So being a Brabus, leather seats, leather, slightly different style steering wheel, paddle shift for the gears, as well as you can obviously knock it and plus minus it. And this is metal, that's Brabus. This handbrake is metal, that's Brabus spec. Leather trimmed dash top, and over there as well, Brabus branded clocks and Brabus mats. I'm thinking that's all the Brabusy bits, and obviously there's some leather here. But yeah, really, the main thing is to clean this ultimately, check that everything works, and get rid of the damp, which is behind here, because the thing you do when you go to look at a Roadster is you check for damp under the carpets under here, and there's big, thick, foamy soundproofing, and yeah, this is wet. So there's still a water ingress issue, so I've got to look at that. But it does need a real clean, because it feels like a little bit of a biohazard at the moment. It has sat for a long time. So I knew it started, and Rob, when he came and inspected it, he said, actually, you know, the chain tension's good, doesn't blow smoke. So that's why what we're going to do is warm it up, get up to working temperature, and then begin the service on the car. Then once it's serviced, we know it's kind of pretty much good to go, and then we can focus on the suspension and the other bits. But if I did need it rebuilding, they've got a rebuild room just there. These are still when they're out the car, when a smart engine is out of a smart, it makes you realise how small it is. The engine is that big. Come have a look. This is a 700cc block.
This is a Roadster block. Yes.
So the same engine as mine, basically. Yes. Just look at how small it is. That is the block. That 3 cylinders there. So I'm getting just over 100 horsepower from that.
Yes.
And you've got way more than 100 horsepower.
Yeah.
What have you got out of them before?
Well, out of the 4.2, I've got 160 brake horsepower out one of mine.
And these are all bits out of this motor, right?
This is everything out of this motor: the head, the cranks, the pistons, the
Look how
cam.
small the crank is.
Yeah.
It's like that.
When we do an engine rebuild, everything in this engine, barring the crank and the rods and the cam, of course, is replaced.
Can you hold up a piston?
Yeah.
Look how small the pistons are. This is a great hack, I've got to say. This is a very cool hack. So it's a twin plug system in these 3 cylinders. So you've got 6 spark plugs for 3 cylinders. And the back set, because the engine's canted over, the back set of plugs is canted that way or that way? This way. So the back set of plugs are really inaccessible to the point where smart dealers used to remove pretty much all the back bodywork of the car and numerous other parts to get to it, which takes forever, and lots of things have got plastic clips and the clips all shatter into oblivion. It's all boring. But what these guys do is they carefully cut a little window behind the number plate so that you can do the back 3 spark plugs with ease, obviously costing less in labour, and you never see that because there's always that over it. Simple, but bloody clever, and it means you can put your fresh set of NGKs in using a very, very, very long extension bar. It's about that long. Time to replace various important parts on the front axle. That means the monoblock Brabus 17-inch rims come off, and then we can access those utterly ruined original discs and pads. The back end has drum brakes on all smarts, the front end has pads and discs like this. I decided to do a mild upgrade and ordered these new units from EBC, green stuff pads and grooved discs. We put a new dust guard behind it, but also what we needed crucially to do is replace the upper and lower ball joints, and that kit from Phoebe Bilstein with the bolts and the nuts that we needed came from Autodoc. Now remember, the reason why I did that is because you almost certainly can't get the nuts undone. You end up having to grind the bolts off. They went on with a new dust guard behind the discs, and remember, these cars, although they look like they're rotten underneath, according to Rob, they don't rot that badly, they just let water in. So I thought it would be the other way around. Suspension and brakes really help with the communication and the road holding, and those are two aspects that these smart roadsters were really known for. Just ask that bloke, Gordon Murray. They weigh in at 852 kilos in the case of the Brabus, 790 in the case of the regular Roadster. 0 to 62 in under 10 seconds with that 101 horsepower, and they will top out at 126 miles an hour, which is why it's important to have decent brakes. So we fitted some slightly uprated discs, some slightly uprated pads, the ball joints are in under there, the drop links are going in later, and then I got a set of new flexi pipe because they all need replacing really. And then the boys are going to make up from scratch new copper hard lines underneath. And then we are getting closer again to an MOT worthy little Brabus Roadster. I also have to register it again because it was classed as a sort of salvage vehicle. So although it's not written off as such, I just need to reinstate that number plate with the V5 so that it can go back on the road again. But I'll do that all well, while these guys are putting the suspension on next week when the lovely Bilstein coilovers arrive. So I hope you've enjoyed this first episode of the abandoned Brabus Roadster Resurrection. I want to say a massive thank you to Rob and the gang at S2 Smarts. So the car runs happily, it should stop happily, and we're that much closer to MOT worthiness, even though we haven't done anything to the bodywork or anything like that yet. That's all to come. And obviously I've got to stop it from leaking because I don't want to take it out in the rain while the roof is still faulty. Thanks to Trent, who let me buy this car and save it in the first place, and also thank you to Autodoc. If you haven't already downloaded the app, download the app, and there's a 5% discount if you use the code that's on the screen right now.